Thanks so much for being with us today at 4:30. I'm Doug Dunbar. Karen Borda is taking the day off today, but Ken Molestina, who is normally sitting in this chair, continuing to lead our team coverage live from Robb Elementary School. So much new information, Ken, today that has come out, and candidly, it feels like it's doing very little to mitigate the overwhelming sadness.
No, and as a matter of fact, Doug, it's adding some anger and some frustration to a community that is already overcome with grief and with heartbreak. Over my shoulder, the memorial out here in front of the school continues to grow exponentially. There are the 21 crosses honoring the 21 lives that were lost here at the school. Those are out there, and the flowers and the gifts, those continue to come. It was also out here in front of the school earlier today when Texas DPS officials gave a news conference, and this is what you were talking about, Doug. They spoke about some details that the investigation is already revealing. Details that, quite frankly, are now being referred to as mistakes that were made in the police response to the shooting in the moments that the shooter was taking all of these lives. It took about 90 minutes for police officials to get inside. We learned that earlier today, and of course that's information that is not sitting well with the folks out here in Uvalde. We want to get to Jason Allen. He's joining us live now as well with more details on what all that investigation is already revealing. Jason?
Yeah, Ken, as you mentioned, very difficult for people here to listen to this explanation today, especially listening to police explain that they had stopped really treating this as an active shooter situation at the school once that shooter was locked inside the classroom with students and teachers.
Hey, for the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, then of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period.
The head of Texas Department of Public Safety worked Friday to explain what caused the delay, stopping the gunman inside Robb Elementary School.
The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
Director Stephen McCraw said the on-scene commander wrongly thought there were no more children at risk, even as trapped students and a teacher repeatedly called 911 begging for help.
Law enforcement also revealed today that this school resource officer was not on the campus at the time of the shooting. They said he raced to the scene, but toward a man he saw at the back of the school who turned out to be a teacher.
In doing so, he drove right by the suspect, who was hunkered down behind a vehicle, where he began shooting at the school.
Authorities say the shooter gained access to the school through a door a teacher had propped open.
My husband and I don't have any children at all, so that's why it hits me right here.
The community continues to flock to a memorial outside the school, leaving flowers and remembering all of the lives lost.
And we also learned today about some more potential red flags that happened well before this shooting, that even last fall the shooter had asked his sister to help him buy a gun, something that she refused to do. And then in late February and early March there had been some conversations on social media about him buying a gun, potentially buying a gun, and even where someone had asked him if he was going to shoot at a school.
Yeah, Jason, and again, all details right now that are being made public, and of course, more details will come out of all of this. We did hear that from officials. They're referring to the investigation right now. It's still being in its early stages. Now, when we talk about stages, I think many people out here in Uvalde will agree that right now we are in the anger stage of all of this grieving. And of course, as you just heard in Jason's report, the information that is being made public isn't helping with any of those details. And again, folks out here just upset with the handling of how this massacre played out here at the school. Now, when you speak to folks out here in Uvalde, as I'm sure folks could already understand, there is this general sense that their police officers here locally let them down and that there were many missteps that should have never happened. Law enforcement officials, again, speaking about a timeline of events earlier today in hopes of clearing up any of that confusion. But again, it had very little effect on those who are expressing their extreme frustration. Investigators insist they are still very early on in this investigation. They say more information is forthcoming, but in the meantime, those that are still trying to cope tell me that they cannot help but feel that the response to saving the 21 victims was insufficient.
Very upset, very confused. The time, because there was a few officers that were chasing the suspect that crashed into the ditch, but then had enough time for him to run to the elementary school to shoot these babies.
They got a lot of explaining to do. They know they messed up. So they have a lot of explaining to do, and a lot of families want answers, and they need them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty mad too.
Yeah, that's what people want out here. They want answers. They say they want transparency. You know, Doug, when you speak to folks out here in Uvalde, they say that they're being patient as they can. But again, it has been 3 long days. They are gearing up for the presidential visit. That is the next big thing that will happen here in town. And of course, that happens on Sunday. We understand that some of the funerals will begin shortly after that. But I'll add one more detail. Doug, this is a town that has just been overwhelmed with so much attention, not only from law enforcement and from the world, but really the media taking over this small town of 20,000 people, and folks here saying that they're just looking forward to the day that all of this clears out and that they can have their town back to themselves so that they can continue the grieving process, because as we know, Doug, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. In fact, it's going to take quite some time to find some peace for those families, if they can find it at all, Doug.
Yeah, having covered so many events like this myself, I feel where they are on basically wanting their town back.
Yeah.
Because it does unfold that way.
They do.
Ken Molestina, thank you so much.